I got a phone call. Her daycare provider let me know that there'd been a terrible accident and that she didn't wake up from her nap.
A Lafayette mother's emotional plea tonight she hopes will save lives. Stephanie Valenta's daughter died after she stopped breathing at an unlicensed daycare. The baby's mother talked with Call 6 Investigates Kara Kinney about the check she wishes she made.
Halloween, dressing up. Gotta have that pumpkin picture.
For Stephanie Valenta, looking at pictures of her daughter Maisie causes a mix of emotions.
There won't ever be these pictures new anymore of her.
On April 25th, Stephanie dropped Maisie off at this Lafayette daycare.
I got a phone call. Her daycare provider let me know that there'd been a terrible accident and that she didn't wake up from her nap.
Stephanie and her husband rushed to the hospital, but it was too late to save Maisie. She died at just 13 months old. The investigation showed the provider, Debbie Keys, put Maisie in a crib she knew was broken.
She pretty much choked to death on a broken piece of her crib.
Stephanie wishes she had checked the crib where Maisie slept at daycare.
Of course, now we look back and we should have known what she was sleeping in. We should have taken that initiative, but we didn't.
Stephanie knew Keys Daycare was unlicensed. What she didn't know is licensed providers face regular inspections from the state.
Are things safe? Do we see anything that's broken? Is there anything that looks to be a hazard?
Nicole Norvell oversees childcare for FSSA, the state agency that regulates childcare.
So if I'm a parent, I should walk into any room that my child is in and just make sure that everything is working.
Absolutely. And you don't see things that look broken.
Records obtained by Call 6 Investigates found FSSA continues to cite childcares across the state for broken equipment.
Typically when we see these tragedies, it is because the equipment is not being used appropriately.
If a provider doesn't fix it, the state can take action. The state revoked this church daycare's registration after inspectors found broken playground equipment, broken lights, faucet, and mirror. As for Debbie Keys, she's criminally charged with reckless supervision and operating a home daycare without a license. Documents show she was operating illegally on the day Maisie died because she was watching 10 unrelated children. You need a license if you're caring for 6 or more children unrelated to the provider. State inspectors say Keys Daycare is now operating legally.
Maybe someone who came into her home would have checked these cribs to make sure that they were safe for children.
As the days pass without Maisie, Stephanie is finding the strength to go on for her older daughter. She's also expecting another baby girl this January.
God knew what we needed in this time of tragedy and darkness, and it was light.
Stephanie finds comfort in the toys and clothes that still smell like Maisie. She hopes sharing her daughter's story will save lives and have other parents checking their child's daycare.
We talk to her and just tell her we're there and we love her, and we just wish it didn't have to be that way.
Debbie Keys' trial is scheduled for next month. She and her attorney have not responded to Call 6 Investigates' request for comment.
Just a heartbreaking story, Kara. You mentioned checking cribs, toys to see if they're broken. What else can parents do?
There's a lot parents can do. You can do your research. Licensed homes, centers, registered ministries, they all have different requirements. Ask to see their license. Look up inspection reports on the state's new Child Care Finder website. And do your own inspection. Make sure equipment is not only working, but being used appropriately. Erica?
Life-saving tips there. Thank you, Kara. Call 6 Investigates has uncovered problems with a system meant to protect your child at school. A new law says school districts must report when they use seclusion or restraint on a student who is out of control. However, Call 6 Investigates Kara Kinney uncovered some districts misreporting that information.
School districts receive these letters telling them they have to report when a child is put in a manual hold called a restraint, or when they're put in seclusion, which means a staffer puts the child in a room and keeps them from leaving. Child advocates say the information is critical to keeping children safe, but we found serious flaws in the system.
This is kind of like Josh's life. But
Nicole Hicks points to the picture when it happened to her son at the age of 9.
Josh endured restraints. He came home with bruises on his wrist and part of his arms.
Josh has autism and a mood disorder. Nicole says the school didn't send home so much as a note about the restraint.
I had a 9-year-old who who started going back to the bathroom in his pants.
Nicole was instrumental in passing a new law that requires school districts to report every time a staffer secludes or restrains a child. It's supposed to be used as a last resort to keep the child safe from hurting themselves or others.
We have to look at when we're doing it, how we're doing it, and making sure that we're doing it correctly.
Call 6 Investigates obtained seclusion and restraint numbers from the 2015-2016 school year. School districts reported nearly 6,000 restraints and more than 6,000 seclusion incidents. But when we checked with districts reporting some of the highest numbers, like Lafayette and Richmond, they told us they misreported. And when we looked closer, more than half of school districts reported zeros across the board, not a single seclusion or restraint. We showed our findings to Indiana Disabilities Rights' Melissa Keys.
Had you seen these numbers until we showed them to you?
No.
It's all over the place.
Exactly.
The problem, according to Keys, is there's no teeth in the law, no punishment for school districts who misreport.
It's great in theory that we have this, but in practice it's just falling short.
Pike Township has the highest number of reported seclusions with 603. Megan Ehlers oversees special education and says they take the definition of seclusion literally when a student's way out is restricted.
This follows the federal guidelines.
They call their seclusion rooms calming rooms. It's like an empty closet, 5 feet wide, 7 feet long. Ehlers explains a child typically spends only about 5 minutes inside.
We don't ever want this to be a scary situation.
Teachers have to hold the door to keep the child in. They cannot lock it and walk away.
By not having anything in there and by having the walls having a little bit of give and stuff, the child can continue to be physically aggressive and will do little to no harm to themselves or to others.
After we started asking questions about this statewide data, the Commission on Seclusion and Restraint met for the first time in more than a year.
I think every school has at least one seclusion during the school year.
The group is now investigating whether schools reported accurately. Nicole is a member of that commission. She points out some special needs children are nonverbal and cameras are not required, so the information is one of the few ways to tell what's happening. Her son is now 19 years old and is still struggling with fear and anxiety. Nicole believes Josh being restrained had a long-lasting effect.
I do believe it played an impact on who we became.
The commission is sending out letters to districts reminding them of their obligation. They're also looking to tweak the definitions of seclusion and restraint because there's a lot of room for interpretation. Kara Kenny, RTV6.
So what can you do as a parent? Ask your district if they have seclusion rooms. Ask to see their policy on seclusion and restraint. By law, every district now has to have one. The law also says schools have to tell parents when they use seclusion or restraint on your child. You can also look up your school's incidents on this story on the RTV6 app.
To Call 6 Investigates, tonight our team is exposing a hole in a system that's supposed to protect your son or daughter while they're at college. One of the worst flaws we discovered, a student expelled for sexual misconduct can simply move from college to college without school officials ever knowing about their past. Call 6 Investigates' Kara Kenny joins us now with the concerning results for a 2-month investigation. Kara.
That's right, Todd. Title IX is the federal civil rights law that bans sex discrimination in education. It's best known for breaking down barriers in sports. It also requires universities to investigate reports of sexual misconduct. But we talked with alleged victims who found universities' responses lacking, to say the least.
When you send your son or daughter off to college, you expect they'll get an education, be safe and supported. Nikki De Silva says she was drugged and raped at a party the summer before college. When she started as a freshman at IU Bloomington, the trauma hit her.
Support varied a lot, and to be quite honest, it was very discouraging. When I reached out to my professors, some of them just kind of looked at me and said, well, you should have said something earlier.
Because the alleged rape happened before Nikki was a student, the university could not trigger a Title IX investigation, a formal process that requires universities to investigate and make certain accommodations for the alleged victim. By the way, Title IX investigations are completely separate from criminal investigations. Every university that accepts federal funds is required to have at least one Title IX officer who investigates sexual misconduct, an umbrella term that includes harassment, sexual assault, domestic violence, and stalking. Haley Ryle says IU found her alleged rapist not responsible despite rape kit evidence.
At an off-campus fraternity party recruiting event situation, and I was sexually assaulted by an acquaintance that I had met that night.
Jane Doe says she was raped and beaten by then Vincennes University student Valdemar Castellano. Jane's attorney, Ron Laneker.
It's appalling that this happened.
Jane filed this federal lawsuit alleging Vincennes violated Title IX, leaving her and other students vulnerable. Castellano was allowed to continue attending Vincennes despite 6 harassment claims filed against him, according to her attorney.
It's disturbing. To have this person continue at the university was a ticking time bomb. We're pretty much ready to explode.
Castellano was expelled from Vincennes, then enrolled at the University of Northwestern Ohio, where just months after arriving, he was arrested for fondling a woman. The University of Northwestern Ohio tells Call 6 they were unaware of Castellano's misconduct history at Vincennes because he left Vincennes off his application. Call 6 Investigates did some checking and learned there is no requirement for universities to share sexual misconduct information with each other. No database, no requirement for sexual misconduct findings to be listed on transcripts.
It makes it free for people to be victimized a second, third, or whatever time.
Castellano left Northwestern Ohio and is now at yet another university, Rhodes State. They wouldn't tell us if they were aware of Castellano's history at 2 other universities. As for Jane Doe, she dropped out of Vincennes University, which declined to comment on her lawsuit. Haley Ryle and Nikki DeSilva transferred to other IU campuses. Emily Springston oversees Title IX for all IU campuses statewide and says alcohol is involved in most sexual misconduct cases and can cloud memories.
So we reach out and have to talk to all of these individuals. This is part of a thorough investigation. It can take time, it can get complex.
Springston couldn't talk about specific cases because of privacy laws, but she says IU's made a lot of improvements, including adding online sexual misconduct training for employees. In all 3 cases, their alleged rapist did not face criminal charges, despite police reports on file. They want the feds and universities to do better when it comes to handling sexual misconduct on college campuses.
And I felt like it was my fault. And I don't want other people to feel like that.
We reached out to Valdemar Castellano for his response, and he threatened to file charges against us. Another hole in the system, a lack of public information. IU Bloomington was the only one who provided us with a full report breaking down how they handled sexual misconduct reports. Universities, at a bare minimum, are required to compile basic crime stats as part of the Federal Clery Act. We've compiled a slew of data on sexual misconduct and other campus crimes on our website, theindychannel.com, and of course the RTV6 app.
And Kara, you talked about the gap that allows alleged rapists to go from college to college undetected. What's being done about that?
There's actually a congresswoman from California who is already working on legislation to address this very issue. We're talking to her and we're working on a follow-up and hope to have that for you guys tomorrow.
And I know you'll stay on that.
Of course.
All right, Kara, thank you.